Hey there, welcome to Medical Tutor. Today we are going to talking about how to study for Jamb exam in 4 weeks. And as you all know that the Jamb form for 2022 is already out with a little registration going on up here and there. So Jamb has started to accredit some CBT centers for their registration, and this is to show that it's about time for every applicant, every Jamb applicant to tighten up their buttons and prepare as much as possible before the exact time comes. So before we go into what we have for today, I want you to please click the subscribe button, and I really appreciate that because this is going to keep the channel going a long way. God bless you. Alright, then let's go into what we have for today. As you already know, we are talking about 4 weeks here. It's not like we have an entire year or maybe have a year or something. So 4 weeks is a very limited time. However, we can still do a lot of things with it. So the first thing we need to do is I need you to understand we are not going to be focused on everything. We are not touching every aspect. We're only touching the things that are very important and are necessary to boost your score. So if you're looking to score 250 above, yes, this is the right video for you. We are not interested in studying the entire syllabus at this point in time anymore. To study the entire syllabus, I believe you must have been preparing for that since last year. So even if you hadn't been preparing, still this video is going to be very helpful for you. So another sort of people that this video is going to be helpful to is people who just started studying recently, and perhaps there has been one reason or the other that delayed your studies and others. So this video is going to be very wonderful for you. Alright, then let's go into what we have for today. How to study for Jamb in 4 weeks. The first thing you need to do is that you need to sort out your weak subjects and the topics under them. Sort out your weak subjects and the topics under them. I'm going to explain this. And let's assume you're a medical student and you want to study medicine. Then your Jamb combination is English. You also have physics, chemistry, and biology. Yes, that's the typical combination for a medical student: English, physics, chemistry, and biology. Now, after looking at all these subjects, you have to pick out your weak subject. So let's assume your weak subject, which in my own case was actually English. Exactly. So but I'm very sure most people will often complain that their weak subject is physics. So my own case was actually English, so I had to do a lot of things to patch it up. But now I'm going to tell you how to patch up another more realistic subject. So let's pick physics. So let's assume physics is your own it's your own place of difficulty. You always find it difficult to answer the questions there, maybe because they are logical reasoning problems, maybe because they require a lot of formulas and this and that. So you are going to first sort out your weak subject. So if your weak subject is physics, then you have to extract physics. So in this period of 4 weeks, you are going to be placing your extreme focus on physics. It's not because you are not going to be reading that subject. You are going to be studying for that subject the way you study for them normally, but this time around you are going to be placing a lot of effort on this physics. Reason is because you can actually turn this weak subject to a subject in which you can gain a lot of free marks. That's how it is. So if physics is your hardest one, then we have to try to patch it up to ensure that it won't be a weakness for you. There's one interesting fact about Jamb. Most of the times when you enter the Jamb hall and start your exam, then you come outside of the exam one, you are so excited that you've written something good. Now the real truth is that you might have done something good in chemistry, you might have done something good in English, you might have done something good in biology, but you realize that if you think about it very well, you've done rubbish in physics. And there's one thing about Jamb: you can't do everything well then leave one subject alone. Every subject contributes a mark to your score, a very important mark, especially physics and every other one of them, especially English actually. But you can't, because you've done English well, you've done chemistry well, biology well, but your physics everything, you're still going to fail. I'm not talking about fail. You might be having something like 200 or something, but that's still not enough for what you're looking for, right? Exactly. So you have to ensure that even your weak subjects are padded up. So that's what you want to do in these 4 weeks. The previous weeks and others you have been studying generally. Now you want to focus on the things that could actually reduce your scores. You understand? The strategy, this first strategy was to study well so you can pass well. The second strategy is to now study so you can remove things that will reduce your mark. So you could have done a lot of good things in the exam and still fail if there's one part you are leaving unattended to. So the first thing is to sort out that unattended part. So sort out your weak subject. Physics, come pick out physics. Then there's no possible way you won't have some weak topics under physics. It's not possible for you to have all the topics under physics as a weak topic. Actually, there have to be some topics that you are particularly finding it hard to deal with. For example, most of the topics in physics that are very hard to deal with, like magnetism, electricity, all those guys are hard guys. So you have to pick out those topics. Every other topic you find difficult under physics, for example, motion. Motion is as interesting as it is. It's sometimes very confusing in the exam, or when there's a lot of pressure and there's little time. So you have to pick out all those topics you feel are very terrible, or you are very terrible at, under your weak subject. So for physics, you pick out at least maybe 3 or 4 or 5, pick them out particularly. Now look at this, I'm not telling you to ignore every other topic under physics, but you want to pick out the ones that you are finding more difficult to attend to. Do you understand now? So now the second thing you're going to do is this: I'm going to group these topics and allocate the time for completing them within the available 4 weeks. Talking about grouping, it means you want to segregate them into, okay, oh, electricity and magnetism, they are together. That's electromagnetism. You put them together because they actually go hand in hand. Some of the formula relations and others, you are able to like pass all of them all together, like all this induction, whatever, Lenz's law, etc., Faraday's. So you're able to actually mix all of them together. So you can mix or group electricity and magnetism together. And if you find it too difficult to group two of them together, you can separate them. Okay, electricity separately, magnetism separately. Then you will now avail, like allocate time for each of them. So you can allocate, like, okay, well, for the whole of electricity, you will need 2 days to finish it. Now mind you, if you want to study and start reading on electricity on your own, something that has been your weak topic under a weak subject, if you want to just keep reading like a maniac, you're not going to get anything. You're just going to waste the entire 2 days. So most of the time I often recommend students, here you're in secondary school, you're finished secondary for a long time now, and doesn't matter, I always recommend students to always come online. Even in medical school here, majority of the times we come online. Actually, we search for videos, ninja nerds, all these kind of people, although these ones are advanced lectures. So we search for these notes and then we begin to study. We listen to them how they teach and we understand. So most of the time it's not really about you just reading. You need to watch videos, have people teach you. And the best place actually at this period of time is your YouTube. Yes, I can tell you that one for sure. Not even people around, it's your YouTube, because in YouTube you're going to find a lot of people with their teaching experiences. Just search for the one you like and check it out and watch it. If it's okay with you, good. If it is not, change for another one again, and you will see within 5 minutes, electricity that you're finding difficult to actually answer, or magnetism questions that you find so difficult to face, and all these motion questions that you find so hard to interpret, they're going to become as easy as possible and in just less than 5 minutes. Some videos are as short as 5 minutes, and they will cover the major things you need to know about electricity. Then once you understand the basics of answering all these weak topics question, then you are going to be able to answer them properly in the exam. But the important thing is to know the basics. Once you understand the basics, everything is solved. So that's what YouTube will do for you. It will explain the basics, and if you want to get more complex, there are also videos there. So, but the important thing is that you need to group the topics and allocate time to complete them within the available 4 weeks. And so don't waste your time. Every time is very precious right now. Just put 2 days, 3 days, that's enough. Then find all the resources. I was supposed to include that here. Find the resources that are appropriate. I've already told you one of the important resources, that's YouTube. So the third thing you can do to study for Jamb in 4 weeks is that you have to go through past questions. Now we are not going through past questions so we can study them this time around. We are not going through them so we can solve the question. You are going through the past questions starting from 6 years ago and finding their way of setting questions from each topics you noted. So you want to go through these past questions then from 6 years ago. Like that 6 years ago will be about 2016 if I'm not wrong. And you want to find their way of setting questions from each of the topics you noted. For example, you picked physics as your weak subject, right? And you also chose motion. Yes, we all know motion, velocity, distance, displacement, all this kind of stuff. You know that motion is one of your weakest points under physics. So you have to go through the past questions, physics Jamb past question for the past 6 years. Try to check for questions on motions. Then once you check for these questions on motions, see the way they set them exactly. There's one thing about Jamb, there's always a pattern. Jamb doesn't really change pattern every time. Even when they change, it's still almost similar. That's why you see anytime you check Jamb syllabus, it's always almost the same thing from the previous one. You can see I didn't talk about syllabus in this video. Even Jamb changes one thing or the other, just be a little. So the pattern, the syllabus, everything is almost the same thing every time. They might change the words and perhaps maybe the number in a question. They might tell you that in maybe in 2016 the question was a man was traveling at a speed of 60 km/h. Now 2022 might be a woman or a lady or an old man was traveling at about 40 km/h on the road of Langenstein. So you can see most of the times it's always just a reconstruction of the statements by changing maybe the subject and changing the object, such as changing the value of the velocity that was being traveled at or the acceleration or whatever. So you see, Jamb doesn't really change their pattern. What they change are just some inclusive values. And once you understand the way they set their question, it's going to be very easy for you to read or study very well on your weak subject and the topics. So you won't just read generally and without direction. You're going to know, okay, if Jamb wants to set question on motion, this is how they will set the question. So if maybe for the past 6 years, whenever Jamb wants to set questions on motion, it is mainly on calculating for velocity, mainly on calculating for displacement. And you already know that, great. When you begin to study for motion, you begin to place more attention on these things. That does not mean you're not going to be studying for every other thing under motion, but you know where your attention is supposed to be. Actually, that's another thing. That's how we study medical school as well. You study lecturers, you study the people around, you study the past questions, you see the way they ask, then you begin to study by using that one as a reference. That doesn't mean that is your headlight actually, but you are using it as a reference of what to do. I hope you guys are getting this. So the first thing is that the third thing is that you go through the past questions from 6 years ago, find the way of setting questions from each of the topics you noted, and great. Just understand that pattern, and once you understand it, then we can move on. Something good is coming on. So the fourth thing, you need to check for the most repeated questions under these topics. I've already told you the most repeated questions under motion. Check how they are being set, then also study how to answer them well. There's always answer at the back of all these past questions, so see the way they are actually being answered, see the formula they use. Most of these times this formula are always used interchangeably. For example, in motion we have the 4 Newton formulas of 4, then maybe the last variable 5, but still mostly 4. The V equals U plus 80, V squared equals U squared plus 2GH or 2, I think 2, a lot of things. Well, it's been a long time. S equals UT plus 1 over 280 squared, if I'm still right, and S equals U plus V over 2 into bracket C. So all these 4 formulas, in fact, no matter what, you must never go into the Jamb exam, or if you're a medical student or maybe a science student, without knowing those 4 formulas. Very important. V equals U plus 80 and others, the Newton's formula, there will always be questions on them. So these are actually free marks for you. These are free tips for you. These are questions that are always coming out every year. Questions such as dimensional analysis. You understand what is the dimension analysis of velocity? Okay, what is the dimension of acceleration? Those kind of stuff, and dimension of mass, dimension of length. Some those kind of stuff are common questions you should study, and I think that's in the first page of your physics textbook. So try, if you're a science student, try to check out dimensional analysis, study it very well, and know all the formula of Newton in your head, all these motion formulas. Put them. It's very important. It's going to come out. Don't doubt that. It's going to surely come out. So now number 5, what you're going to do is that you have to start studying smartly while patching up your weaknesses. You know, I told you the other time that everything is just not just about reading and reading and reading and reading. You have to, there's a pattern to reading. You can't just read anyhow. You have to read in accordance with the pattern that has already been laid. In the past 6 years, check for the pattern, then follow these patterns. You are not just going to be like blinded and just follow the patterns without looking for any other thing. You have to be smart with it. Attach other things. Look for other ways they can even set the question outside the one you feel. So if you've seen that they used to set motion questions particularly like this in the last 6 years, that doesn't mean that's the only thing you put in your head. You also have to think, what if they change the pattern and set it this way? Yeah, that's how you become smart while studying. You think ahead like the lecturer. Okay, what if Jamb sets this question like this? Will I be able to answer them? Then you try to answer it, and if you are good, move on to the next pattern, and you keep studying like that. Although you might be thinking all these things are too much for 4 weeks, but that's actually a lie. That's the reality. Unless you are just being lazy, I can tell you that with all my mouth. It's unless you are being lazy. 4 weeks is more than enough for all these things. More than enough. You have all the resources, unlike before in the period of our parents where there's nothing like YouTube. You have YouTube now. Go through the videos, let them show you the way it is being done. Study all these questions. Go to check on motion questions on YouTube, even on Google there, but you can use YouTube mostly. You see motion questions that are being solved. Although in the next few days we are going to be rolling out some questions, some most repeated questions in physics, chemistry, biology, all around, so everybody can get a little pie out of whatever might be coming out again. So I'm not telling you that they are exposed, but actually for questions that are always being repeated every time, that's actually a free mark for everyone watching my channel. So that's why I say you should click the subscribe button and at least don't go. Stay with us. It's actually beautiful. So now let's move on to the next thing. Number 6, for the subjects you are very confident in, don't neglect them. For the subjects you are very confident in, don't perfect them more, so that the questions coming from them will be the same as the free mark. So if normally you are very good in chemistry, or let's use biology, is a very sweet topic. You're very good in biology in your secondary school, you're always having A, this and that. Maybe you've written Jamb before, in your past Jamb you're always having very high scores, 60, 70, 80. Don't, because of that, neglect biology because you want to try to focus on physics. If you do that, you're going to be losing your original free mark. So you can't be sacrificing one for the other. Like I told you, although in these 4 weeks our priorities on your weaknesses, so that we can patch them up and they won't reduce your score. your priority is also to make sure that you moderate your study of other things that you're already good in. So you are particularly good in biology, please place more focus on it, study it more, check it out more. Like, you can, I told you already, YouTube is a very good and wonderful resource in this generation. Go on YouTube, you see a lot of questions or videos on a lot of questions on biology. Go to the, yeah, it's, I've already given you everything. Go for the past 6 years, there's a pattern in the way they said biology questions. Check this pattern, check the questions that are often repeated. There will always be some, in 6 years there will be about 20 questions that are always being repeated. They might change the statement, but it will be the sentence. So check these questions, go through them, understand them, and boom, you're good. And you see yourself scoring very high, 280 and this and that. I can boldly tell you one thing. Yeah, I remember during my study for the last Jamb, I wasn't really particularly interested in Jamb because I was Nigeria admission and everything is just so tiring. So I studied less, but actually my weakness was English. So I think that's the only thing I really opened a textbook for. The novel or whatever they give out, I think I started studying for that a day before. So I didn't really, I just checked some things on English. I used A to Z English. In case you're having problem with English, you can check out A to Z, yeah, by Daily something, I think Daily Akonde or something. Yeah, remember Daily Akonde, you can check. It's a very wonderful textbook for English. If you're lacking, it's beautiful. Some of the questions in Jamb questions are actually similar to the ones that I practiced in Daily Akonde. So that's another expo for you, or a tip for you. So get Daily Akonde A to Z and begin to study it now for your English weakness, and you see it will be beautiful. Your result will be so awesome. When my results came out, even though I didn't study for other things because I was already frustrated with Nigeria's admission, I still had 295 and 292 rather. My previous Jamb, I remember that one was 295 as well. So that's how Nigeria's been tiring in admission. So you can have a lot of high score and still not be given admission. But I believe, don't worry, God is just there for you. So the first thing is to pass the order of scoring high, and once you have that in your pocket, then the Bible says that the Lord blesses. So for there to be a blessing, there has to be something you've planted. So do this very well, have the Lord bless whatever you've done, and you're going to see everything else work out for good. So just try to do everything you can do to patch up the weaknesses, like I did. I used Daily Akonde to patch up my English weaknesses. I knew if I had studied more for the other subject, I would have been having more than just 292. Yeah, that's the reality. So the same thing I'm going to be doing as you are studying for this weak part of yours. You have to also ensure you don't neglect the ones you're already good at. And so as you're studying for the weak physics, you also ensure you have to balance up the strong biology, so that at the end of the day, when you start your exam, you won't have to be losing in any way, and everybody's going to be having a good smile on their faces. So just don't neglect the ones you are very confident in. In fact, overconfidence can lead you to failure, so try to not neglect them. Then the seventh one, at the end of every topic, always ensure you do some past questions to test your improvement. So I already mentioned this before, but I'll be iterating it again. Iterating it again. Sorry. I want you to focus more on it. It's very important. Number 7. After you finish every topic, maybe you've watched YouTube videos, checked every resources, checked some textbook, and now you have a good grasp of the topic. Ensure you do at least maybe 20 past questions on that topic. So on motion, you're very weak on motion, right? Great. Once you've studied and you've watched YouTube, then you've gained some enlightenment, and you're like, wow, so it is like this. Wow, I didn't know it could be solved as easily as this or something. Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. That's a very wonderful thing. That's an improvement, but you have to test your improvement as well. So once you've done all the wow and you're so impressed by the fact that you can get it and understand whatever they're talking about on YouTube, but maybe in the textbook, then check out for some questions, begin to solve all those questions. You can go more than 20 actually, but at least I recommend the moderate level of 20. But reality is that you can go more than that. You can even go up to 100 questions per topic if you have the time. So check out those topics and see how much you can get, see how fast you were able to get those answers, and again, try it every day. You have to be able to increase your speed of answering questions. That's why most students fail. Most students don't fail because they don't know, but because they find it difficult to really think in the exam or under the pressure. So you have to put yourself under pressure. Don't be doing past question without a time. If you want to study any past question, at least put a time. Put like maybe an hour or maybe 30 minutes. The same way it is in Jamb. Time yourself, and beyond that time, you must not answer those questions unless when you want to do correction. The reason is because it will put you under the same duress of exam. That's why I sometimes recommend you use all these online CBT apps. For example, you can use myschool.ng. Yes, it's free actually. Just use it on their web and it's good. It will time you. You feel the pressure and you want to answer as fast as possible. Your time won't be wasted. So you have to test yourself with some past questions so you can know how you will fare if you are given the same question or similar question in the exam one. Some questions are actually coming in the way of logical reasoning, especially these motion questions. You just have to think. Once you understand the question, you know the formula already. It's very simple. Motion formulas are very easy to put on it, but you have to understand the principle, be able to explain. So if I tell you that Tolu went south and BC went north, then calculate this and that, you have to be able to interpret the question first. It's very important, and that's why most students fail, because they find out to interpret what the person setting the question wants. So if you don't understand it, you can't answer the question. Do you guys understand? So at the end of every topic, do some past questions. They will help you to be able to adapt to this exam system and how to answer them, and that's the importance of past questions. Number 8, topics that are rarely repeated should be handled with moderate focus instead of wasting much time on them. I've already told you to go through 6 years back, so you are going to see some topics that they are rarely repeated. Some topics will just be like maybe once in an entire 6 years, and maybe just one question under them. Those are examples of rarely repeated questions. They are rarely seen. Sometimes you might not even know if they are setting them at all. Even if you check Jamb syllabus, you will rarely see them there. So just give them moderate focus. Don't waste too much effort on them. I'm not saying you should not touch them at all. Anything can happen. They can bring them out, but at least make sure that your focus is not fully on it. Just give them moderate focus. Moderate focus means not too high, not too low, and ensure that even if they ask something on those high and rarely repeated topics, you are going to be able to answer something on them. Do you understand? And number 9, which is one of the most important, if not the second most important, be disciplined to ensure your everyday target is met at all costs. Because discipline is the first step you have to take in when you want to achieve success, especially when you want to score in Jamb. If you are always the person that sleeps 8 hours a day and you want to pass Jamb, well, boss, you'll be boss. So I don't know, maybe there's something else pushing you, maybe there's something else helping you. A lot of people sleep more than 10 hours and they still pass Jamb. So I'm not telling that you should not sleep well or something, but if you are sleeping for 8 hours, that's not the definition of sleeping well. You're just sleeping like I don't know what to describe it with. Sleeping for 8 hours is practically too much for a Jamb student, and that's the reality. It's just too much. If you sleep for 8 hours a day, it means you would have slept for about 125 days in a year. Yeah, you can make your calculations. 8 hours a day is about 1/3 of the entire day's hour, and that's about 1/3 of the whole 365 days. So technically speaking, if you sleep 8 hours a day, that means you are sleeping for about 120 something days. Like, that's crazy. What are you doing with 125 days or 120 something days in a year? You've wasted it on sleeping. So reduce your sleep time. It's very important. You can sleep 5 hours and be good. Yeah, it's training, it's discipline. You can sleep 5 to 6 hours and you're beautiful, you're awesome. You understand? So you have to learn to adjust to that. Don't, in this Jamb time, you just need to make a little sacrifice and you see yourself good. Every success comes with a sacrifice. I don't think anybody have it easy, no matter what. Even the ones that find it easy still have to put in some effort. Do you understand? So please try, and I ask you again to try to ensure you are disciplined. Make sure your time is well adjusted and used. Don't, it's like once it's already 7, 8 and you know you want to read maybe overnight, or maybe you want to read from that 8 to maybe like 12 in the midnight, and then you now want to go and carry a bar and go and eat a bar by 6, you are going to sleep. You want to eat heavy food to sleep. Even here at school, I ensure that I stop eating at least about 1 hour to my reading time, because if I do that, I will obviously sleep. If you eat when you're about to read, you will sleep. So ensure that you are disciplined, know what to do at the right time. Eating is good, but know when to do it. Sleeping is good, know when to do it. Do you understand me? So be disciplined to ensure that your everyday target is met. Once you put a topic for today, don't ensure that it doesn't exceed today unless the reason is very tangible. And when I mean tangible, I mean it is unavoidable and it is so important that there's nothing you can do about it. So ensure that your target is met every day. Don't slack, don't be distracted by your friends, or when you go on YouTube, don't be distracted by all these comedies and whatever. Oftentimes when you're tired and your head is eating up, you can check the comedy videos, but don't let them take your time. And once you watch one comedy video of 5 minutes or 6 minutes, like Brother Shaggy, Mr. Macaroni, Kiki, yeah, those are my favorites every day. So once you watch things like that, it's very important you just step out. That's enough. Then and start reading again, start watching your YouTube on these educational topics. That's what I do. Once I study like 3 or 4 hours and my brain is already unable to like cool down with all the things around me, I will just go to YouTube, watch some comedy. I've already told you the ones I watch most of my also be interested. Shaggy, Macaroni, Kiki, which other one? Officer Wos, yeah. Officer Wos. So those guys are very funny and they help you to keep the environment, everything still fun, and you feel good, yeah, and you'll be so refreshed. But don't get entangled with them. You need discipline, or else you just keep watching and bangs. You have nothing that you want. You've already banged already. So you have to be able to discipline yourself. That's the important thing. And the most important one, actually number 9 is just the second most important. The most important thing itself is number 10. Pray always. It always speaks louder than effort. So I can tell you one thing: if you like study from morning till night for the next 1 year for Jamb, to am a bang or bang. If you don't bang, so by the time you pass, you won't still gain admission. So it's reality. Don't think it's a course. It's reality. Ask people. People are. I told you I had 295 in the past Jamb before this recent one that I used to gain admission about 4 years ago, and I wasn't given even a single. I wasn't even given any course. Like imagine you use almost 195 to apply in university and you are not even given an alternative at all. Yeah, something like that happened to me. I have a friend that scored about 301 in Jamb and he applied for medicine back then. They didn't give him a single thing. They didn't even give him medicine. They didn't even give him anything. Even carpentry itself. Let's even assume there's a course like carpentry. They didn't give him. And you understand that's a whole year wasted. So it's not about just scoring good in the exam, it's about gaining the admission. So if you score good, everybody will praise you and be like you are very intelligent. But if you don't gain admission, all the praises will just go into the drain and no one cares again. You have to start studying again. So the important thing is that you have to pray always. It speaks louder than your entire effort. Pray and pray and pray. Entrust everything to God. As you're watching your comedy video, watching your YouTube educational videos, you can also check out videos on faith. Faith is very important, so you will trust God. It won't be like Rumba exam and Jamb. If you understand Yoruba, you have to ensure you take out all those fears. All those fears are the things that will first bring failure to your students. So ensure you pray always. Prayer always brings you to the place of faith and belief with God, and you'll be so confident that no matter what happens, I will still. That's the same thing happened to me. I didn't study for Jamb and I was still so confident of entering the exam, and I still came out in a very good way, in a flying color. And so you always have to pray. Prayer is very important. Get in touch with Father. Father has a way to always make everything easy for us, and you can see everything will just work out for good. So remember Romans 8:28, all things work for good unto those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And you have already been called according to God's purpose. That's why you are here, obviously. So always put God first and last. Everywhere, God first and last is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. So first and last, put him there. So I think that covers everything we have for today. How to study for Jamb in 4 weeks, a recap of everything. Number 1 is to sort out your weak subjects. Number 2 is to group them. Number 3 is to go through past questions to check for patterns. Number 4 is to check for the most repeated questions. Number 5 is to start studying smartly and patch up your weaknesses. Number 6 is not to neglect the subject you are very confident in. Number 7 is to do some past questions to test your improvement. Number 8 is to undo those rarely repeated questions with moderate care and focus. Number 9 is to be disciplined, and number 10 is to pray always. So please ensure you subscribe to my channel if you loved this video, and thanks for doing that. You can also share it to your friends. It's going to be very helpful. I love you guys. Thanks a lot.